our third booking was a party. Guys, you've got like 10 teenagers checking out. Like, I think some of them are underage as well. Great, this is going to be a nightmare. Door handle was off, burnt carpet, they'd smoked, they'd smashed things, furniture was all moved around, and they'd literally burnt like in every place possible.
There were so many different learnings because you do a course, and of course they teach you the theory side of service accommodation and everything else. However, there's a lot more in which you actually need to know. When you first start your business, you are everything. You are the
head of marketing, finance, design.
You are everything. Until you start replacing those roles within your business, you start to buy back time where you can gain that balance.
First year for us, we did 85k in turnover. Year 2 was $500,000 in turnover. At the end of year 3 this year, I think we're going to fall just short of $1 million. I think we'll lie somewhere between 900 to 950. Oh my God, like this is brilliant. Like, is it this easy?
We're making more than the landlord from a cash flow perspective. We're making money from someone else's property. At that stage, we were just like, you know what, we need to go out and get as many as quickly as possible.
Guys, welcome back to another Grow Your BnB video. Now, I have got some special guests here who are not only a client of mine, but I must say they've got probably the top 3 short-term rental business going in the UK, just with people, systems, processes, booking, properties, and everything to do with it. So guys, firstly, welcome to GrowYourBnB podcast. People would love to know who you guys are and what you guys do.
Let you kick us off, mate.
Thanks for having us, first of all. My name's Anderson.
I'm Ryan.
And we're from Velour Property Services.
There's another director who's not actually with us today, so I just have to get that out there as well.
Shout out to Patrick. I might as well give the name out as well.
So we're a serviced accommodation property management company, shortlisted for Best Operator 2024. And we're currently sat on 38 units.
Amazing. Well, guys, there you go. You're going to get a lot of value today. Like this guys have said, shortlisted for, is it like for the whole of the UK?
It's actually
European.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why, because you guys are going to learn a lot from this podcast. So let's get into the video. Gents, well, firstly, thank you so much for taking time out to share your journey. And before we, start this podcast, what do you think about Sandbanks?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. It's beautiful. We went for a 5k run along the beach.
It was meant to be 5, we cut it short.
Absolutely. How was the run?
It was okay. You struggled a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I haven't run in a very long time. But I got out there. I'm more of a gym goer.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. No, it's one of those places that motivates you to just go out.
Yeah.
And have fun. Even if you do a couple of minute walk.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. I remember the amount of time I used to do a call with you and say, I'm just going to go down. Literally, I'll go in, do maybe a 15 minutes walk and come back and feel really fresh. Yeah. So enjoyable. Look, I want to really go into this podcast today because firstly, I think in-person podcasts with my clients, but also this guy's, I was saying off camera, probably one of the most streamlined business I've ever seen.
Thank you.
And hats off to you. And this is probably why you guys want to watch this podcast today, because I really, I've worked with many clients in a different scale, and I've seen these guys really put systems and processes in place to a T that I know for the fact that this is where they're looking to scale and make it bigger for you guys, right? Yeah. So let's go back, right? What does the early days look like? Where did this all come about?
Well, it was a message really from myself. I think in terms of our backgrounds, we're both quite entrepreneurial. We've both tried different things, whether it be drop shipping, marketing agency, investing in trading, cryptos and stuff like that. But in terms of something for the sort of long term and actually having a business that's got longevity to it, it was always property. We always had an interest in property, always wanted to invest in property. As homeowners, it was a case of, okay, where's the money coming from to do a BRR, whatever that looks like. And funny enough, I stumbled across a Samuel Leeds video on YouTube. I come across the whole concept of rent to rent. Thought, this seems a little bit too good to be true. Surely people can't be making money from other people's properties. But done a little bit more research, and literally 1st of January 2022, I put a message into our group chat. We had a little WhatsApp group chat. I said, boys, this is it. This is the year we're doing it. Bought a course, and literally from there it just scaled. Got 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, and it just continued to take off.
Wow. Okay, so when you say in a group chat, that was a boys group chat. That was never a business group chat, right?
No.
Okay, so look, straight in, friends in business. Like, how do you all put this together? Like, how long have you been friends for, firstly?
We've been friends for 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah. So Ryan and I, we were in the same form in year 8, but didn't actually become really good friends till we were in 6th form.
Yeah. Did you talk business when you were in, like...
We didn't really speak much at school, did we?
Not in school.
To be honest, in the first few years.
Yeah, 6th form we spoke about business here and there. It wasn't really like it was more sort of just surface level. But then when we went off to university, we kept in touch, and we were talking about our plans after university, as well as with Patrick. And like things about business, crypto, crept in, didn't it? Really?
Yeah. Wow. So 20 years of friendship, and then how long have you now been? I know you've done a couple of different businesses, but let's talk about service accommodation, which is where you guys are scaling at the moment, doing really well. So how long have you had that going for?
Just over 2.5 years. So we officially incorporated the business on the 3rd of February 22.
Wow.
We didn't get our first unit until the 8th of April 22.
Nice.
So we had that sort of period in between where it was, we done our course, and then we got everything up and running in terms of like the business, insurances, uniforms, business cards, emails.
You even rep the company.
Yeah, we got branded uniforms.
One thing my team hates me for is not doing that, which I understand now. When you walked in, I was like, that looks amazing actually. Just to have that company outfit. I should be doing that a lot more, to be honest, because going on a walk with a company branding makes a lot more sense. But no, good. Okay, so April 2022, you got your first unit. So look, I guess today's podcast, guys, what I want to do is I want to talk about that 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to like 20, and then obviously now you guys are on a lot bigger scale, which we'll talk about. But they all come with different challenges.
Absolutely.
I know for the fact because I work with someone who's just about to get their first unit this week. And they've got a dream of what you guys have today, right? Which is, how many units are you on right now as we speak?
38.
38 units. So let's go back very, very kind of that very first unit. How did that come about?
Through an estate agent, and it actually came about quite quickly. So we incorporated the business on the 3rd of February. It took about a month to do our course, which we started sort of mid-Feb, so that took us to mid-March. And then we spent like literally a couple of weeks doing all the, like I say, setting up of the business and stuff like that. And then literally within a week of making phone calls to estate agents and landlords on open rent and messages, an estate agent said yes to us, liked our approach, liked our professionalism, again turning up with polos that had the brand and stuff on. Simple things as well, like some of the initial conversations we had with landlords, they were saying people that approached them to do management or rent to rent, but didn't have a business phone number, didn't have business email, didn't even have a website for them to look on. Whereas we had that. It might have been basic, and it has changed 4 or 5 times. I think you've redeveloped it, but we had it there as just something to them to refer to. An estate agent gave us a chance, and we've got I think 5 from them now. Okay,
so now going back to that first unit, like what was your the key takeaway from there? Because I say this to everyone, not the courses, not what I show online shows you when you first pick up that keys and actually go and set up that unit, right? Making sure that it's done in the right way, making sure that you've turned it around in the right time. Because I speak to clients, and some of my obviously newer clients, I always say to them, look, whoever you did your mentorship with, you've got to get your unit ready very quick, not after 15 days when you do another rent in 15 days time. So how long did it take you guys to actually set it up?
It was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like 5 to 7 days, something like that for the first one. We've done them quicker, and to be fair, we've done it on a budget, the first one. We were just looking at the numbers before. I think we've done it at like £1,500.
Wow.
The furniture was second hand. We shopped. We were very, very savvy, because the thing was as well is, although we heard of the concept, we didn't want to obviously over leverage and risk all of our funds on actually getting the unit set up to such a high standard initially. So we really shopped on a budget. Like the sofa was from IKEA secondhand. Discount corner. I think it cost us like what, 200 quid?
150. Whereas now, like every sofa, we get the same one from the same company. It's a grand sofa.
Yes.
So like our offerings improved massively. But like you say, in terms of the risk appetite for that first one, it is very much budget. Get it up and running. Let's see how it goes, and then we can sort of develop.
Good. And I think people watching this, hopefully if somebody's about to like start, I think this is probably one of the great tips that you guys have given. Like, try and not go and spend loads of money, right? Be smart on how you find furnitures. There's loads of stuff nowadays you can do, but you've got to put in the work. Right, that's the difference between, like, I feel like with new units, like sometimes people want the best unit, but then I've spoken to clients where I love them because they come with me with the best looking unit. I'm like, that's very easy to get them booking, but reality there is they've end up spending $8,000 on it. And I'm like, how do you even like just justify $8,000 on your first unit when you want to scale to 5, 10 and all the others? So I guess, what were your key takeaway then, like within that first 1 unit to 5th unit? What did you guys learn about the business?
There were so many different learnings, because I'd say you do a course, and of course they teach you the sort of theory side of service accommodation and everything else. However, there's a lot more in which you actually need to know, and a lot of it is you don't know what you don't know. Because you're sometimes picking up, when we first picked up our unit, we were thinking about how we set up the unit from our lens, not from the entire target audience that we're trying to pull in. So in terms of like little things such as like pots and pans, wine glasses, toiletries, teas, coffees, we didn't really think about it to that level of detail that we do think about it now. Even things such as Ring doorbells on our first unit, we didn't have one. And now, that backfired massively.
Very early, which is a good thing for us.
Well, let's talk about that. What actually happened then?
So we had our first unit. The first booking came in literally, I think we posted it on the Friday, and I remember the booking came in for that Friday for 2 days. We thought, oh my god, like this is brilliant. Like, is it this easy?
That first ping.
Yeah. Well, oh my god. We were just about finished it off. That was okay. They'd smoked in it, which look, it's gonna happen every now and then. Didn't really do any damages, but we're like, great, we've got to air it out and stuff now for the next guest. And then I think we had one more booking after that was fine, and then our third booking was a party. So didn't have a Ring doorbell up, and funnily enough, we'd had conversations, didn't we, before setting up, and I really pushed for it, but you and Patrick thought it might be a bit too invasive and put people off booking. So we didn't have one up, and my mum, who's been absolutely incredible for us, and she still works with us now and does bits and pieces, she actually was doing the cleaning at the start. So she turned up just as they were putting the keys back in the key box, and she said, guys, you've got like 10 teenagers checking out. Like, I think some of them are underage as well. So at that point we're thinking, great, this is going to be a nightmare. She went up, door handle was off, burnt carpet, they'd smoked, they'd smashed things, furniture was all moved around. But like the carpet was like, so it's a relatively small one bed, and it's got like a folding door to separate the bedroom from the living room, and they literally burnt like in every place possible. So like the carpet need completely replacing. We learned very quickly, like Ring doorbell needs to go up. But then also, obviously we'll probably come into this in a bit more detail, length of booking. It was a 1 night booking. We don't do 1 nights anymore. So again, we learned very, very quickly 1 night over, not doing that again.
Not doing that. And I guess I think the biggest learning that you can see in that process was, if you didn't actually have those, well, if you did have those cameras in place, you could have probably stopped that straight away. Right? And again, people watching this, I think, the numbers of conversation I have with like new SA operators, I'm like, oh, do you have a Ring door camera? You're in a location where, if you're doing 1 night, is it worth doing 1 night, firstly? And secondly, if you don't have a camera, how do you know you maintain that? Because at the end of the day, neighbours, they can be the biggest problem into USA business. That first complaint with neighbour, that neighbour going into estate agent and saying, or writing your landlord, they might know the landlord, so they might just message the landlord saying, these guys are not great tenant. It becomes a huge problem in the industry, I think. And I've realised quickly, this is where the GrowYourBnB part is, well, think about the longer term booking, because then we can just mitigate all that risk of focusing on good guest behaviour. So that 0 to 5 units between like you guys, like what did it look like? Were you like going, bloody hell, this is working? Like as a friend, like how did it, what was the feeling like?
Yeah, it was a really exciting feeling actually, because I would be sat at work at the time, and I would see these bookings coming in and the value of those bookings, and we were like thinking to ourselves, hold on a second, we're making more than the landlord from a cash flow perspective.
Yeah.
Of course we don't benefit from the capital appreciation, but from a cash flow perspective we're making money from someone else's property. And we managed to do this from actually just investing how much initially, what would you say?
I think including setting up the business and stuff like that and getting all our uniforms, email, domain stuff, I think we all put in $3,000 each.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that paid for the rent, deposit, furnishings, and then all the other stuff I've just mentioned.
So then at that stage we were just like, you know what, we need to go out and get as many as possible, as quickly as possible. So that's where we really thought to ourselves, you know what, this is going to be a proper business. Let's start thinking of it as a business, and try and scale it as quickly as possible.
Love that. Okay, so now let's go into 5 to 10 units, because 0 to 5 for me, I've seen, and this is sad to say it, but I've seen 0 to 5 clients fail in that first 18 months, just because they scale quickly, right? They've invested all the money, and at some point what happens is they'll have a quieter season, they'll have profit from one unit going into the other units, and then just about break even. And naturally some people have more business risk capitals than the others, and some you know, and eventually I've seen a lot of time of, you know, the people contacts me generally are, oh, we're about to close the business down, we want to talk to you. Okay, well, what does this look like? You know, the usual stuff that I ask, and nothing's in place. And I'm like, well, this is probably why it's not working for you at the moment, and will not work for you if you don't do something about it. So I guess my question to you is, now you've got a replication of what you've done from 0 to 5. How quickly did you go from 5 to 10 units?
It's quite quick after that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think we'd got our second unit came in July, which was rent to rent. We had another one in September, which was another rent to rent. Then October came the 4th, and then December we actually got 2, which took us 5, 6, and then from that point, as we got to like the 6th mark, we sort of stumbled across the idea of management as well, didn't we? Because we were recycling our cash back in, but we were just entering into what we knew was the traditional sort of low season. So we were sort of conscious of cash flow at that point. So we wanted to continue to grow and scale because we'd seen the success, but we were just recycling all of our cash. So there was no pot of cash there if needed, and to keep growing. Luckily at that point we were still in, well, I wasn't, I'd left my job, so we got our first unit in the April, and I'd left my job in the October that year where it was going so well. And like I say, we were up at about 5 at that point, so it needed somebody full time. But yeah, we weren't sort of draining the business from a cash flow perspective for salaries, because they were still being paid by our jobs at that point. But yeah, once we introduced management as well, that's where it sort of really took off and continued to grow quicker, because you're not using your own cash at that point.
And that's something that we can talk about in a minute about management. And for me, this is why I think the reason why I brought you guys here is that, you know, the business is solid. Like, I can't, and probably I hands down, working with so many clients, I'd probably say you're on the top 3 in the UK.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's, you know, something that I've worked with 200, 300 clients, and I've numbers of 40, 50 clients, and I can tell you that. And something I've been very fascinated about was, like, off topic with growth, like units are there and everything's going on, but it also comes with like the mindset of business, because like I'm sure there's numbers of things that you haven't, or you had to give up to be able to enjoy or grow the business. So when you hit that 10, 15 units, what other things do you believe right now you're like, oh my god, I didn't do that, like, you know, I had to give up in terms of personal life, you know, I remember on my journey when I had my estate agency business, Ivan knows this, I was literally going in every single day without fail with red eyes. Honestly, it was like red eyes, because I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm taking the business risk. I'm waking up every morning thinking about business. I'm there about 7:30 opening the door. These guys were coming about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then I'm thinking, okay, we've got to put some property lives or whatever that is, and then by the end of the day I'm knackered, but I still have to be there because we've got other things to do. At that point I did feel like, you know, the hustle mentality. It was like, oh my competition's gone home, I'm still working. And I'm like, well, they've got about 10 people who's done all the jobs, whereas you're working on their own. Now I think about it. But you know, what are the things that you feel like in a personal level you had to give up?
I think we both made quite a lot of sacrifices, didn't we, in terms of personal life. So you're like really big with gym. You had a whole period where you didn't go to the gym. I played semi-professional football, stopped playing football for a year completely. And we're talking about this before we came, actually. I think because serviced accommodation's a service-led business, I think we were so eager to please our guests. And of course, you could have guests at any point contacting you at any point in the day. So if somebody contacted at 10, 11, midnight, we felt obliged to respond. So the phone would ring or would go off and you're getting up and you're dealing with that. But in terms of like continuing in the long term and having a sustainable business, you realise you can't do that. Like you are going to be up, like you just said, red eye, silly hours, picking up things that you shouldn't be doing.
I think alongside that, and as you kind of touched on, Piers, that sort of hustle mentality. When we first started out, it was one of those things where, like, say we had a system or process that needed improving, I would stay up for hours looking at ways of improving that. We'd be reading the books around, we kind of took ourselves away from service accommodation itself and started to understand what it takes to build a business. So started to actually delve into like business books, entrepreneurship books, and really doubling down on our knowledge around marketing, operations, finance, people management eventually. But then there was periods where I'd personally be up till like 1 a.m, or I'd because I was still working at the time, even whilst you were still in a job, would be getting up like 5, 6 in the morning to actually do the things that needed to be done within the service accommodation business, as well as like weekends would be working to the point that your missus used to absolutely hate it. On a Sunday would be going to a business meeting or with a client, and it's like, look, I actually want to see you this weekend.
Dog walking days, Sunday, like meant to be chilling on the sofa, Sunday roast.
Absolutely. And I think that and this is something that I asked Samuel in the podcast. The first thing I asked him was, I said, let's talk about health, wealth, love and happiness, right? And I think the love part for me, so you've got a partner, Ryan?
I do now.
So again, I have a partner. We've been together for 2.5 years, and you don't realise how much you then have to balance out life to be able to have that hustle mentality. And again, going back to my estate agency, when I was about 27, all of these guys used to laugh because I didn't go on dates. I was like hustling every day. Honestly, they'd be like, when are you going on dates? And I'm like, well, I can't because I've got this business.
Got money to be made.
Money to be making. You know, it's so. But then again, was that the right thing to do for you then?
I think I would say yes. In the short term, yes. And I think I'm very fortunate that my wife was very understanding and she supported what I'd done or we were doing and understood the long-term vision. Again, is it sustainable for the long term? Absolutely not. Did I get the balance right? Definitely not. I remember on our third unit at Centro, we were painting it at 3 o'clock in the morning. Me, him and Pat were all up on ladders painting it. We got clips on our social media painting at 3 o'clock in the morning to get it done, because again, like you said at the start, once you've picked up the keys, you need to get it rented out as quickly as possible. We're all there with rollers at 3 o'clock in the morning painting together, and then back again at 7 in the morning for a couple of hours to then go to work at 9. Got the balance horribly wrong, but that's, I think at the start you kind of do need to do that, and then just make sure that you do eventually put your systems and processes in place to pull away from that, because it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
It wouldn't be. And I think this is where I think one of the things I've realised with many entrepreneurs in this journey, especially in service accommodation, because I think what the courses and the mentorships is like, okay, well, go and make that 100 phone calls and be able to get your first unit, or do this and do that. And there's now obviously more competition, more people are doing it. There's a lot of challenges in place. And the main learning I found of this was the mindset of like a new service accommodation operator is like, I want to go and get the unit, but they're not willing to put in the work in. And that for me has been like the biggest challenging part of this year, because there's more and more people getting into SA. There's more and more people going, oh, there's GrowYourBnb who might be able to help us. But then nowadays when I'm qualifying them, I'm trying to look at their mindset. I want to know if they're going to last for another 12, 18 months, because now we're 5 years into the cycle of consulting. I've realised that the people that hasn't invested with us, and genuinely I follow them up in like 6 months time and they're like, Piers, we're about to shut down. And I'm like, because you haven't really done anything about it. But more importantly, your mindset has always been, I'm not getting any booking. I'm not getting this. I'm not, we're not getting that. I don't think my property gets longer term booking. So for you guys, I guess the first question is, in terms of bookings and the mindset, at what point in your journey you then went, actually, property is important, but so is the booking, like the length of quality of bookings?
I feel like it was probably around the 5 to 10 mark where we were looking at, okay, because we've got our own goals in terms of the units we want to reach. Like we're thinking between 50 to 100, and I appreciate that's quite a large range as to where we're going to land for properties under management. But we were looking at a calendar one day where we consistently saw that Fridays and Sundays we had a huge amount of checkouts. And we were kind of looking at it thinking from the perspective that once we get to the 50s, the 100s, that is not sustainable. Alongside that as well, we were looking at when we were getting one night bookings, that's where the issues seem to have come from. Now, when you've got all of that in place, well, in mind, you start to think, okay, that's putting a real strain on operations. So what do we need to do in order to take the strain away from the operations? And when I say operations, we're talking about our cleaners that are the most important part of our business. Now, if they're at max capacity and they can't actually sustain the workflow that's coming through currently, they're not going to be able to from a long-term perspective. So that's where we started to have conversations, like we really need to have a look at the length of bookings. Now, it's quite funny because when you start to play around with your calendar management, you start to get nervous and you start to think like, okay, if we increase the minimum night stay to say your week, will we get the bookings? Because alongside that, we started to go through and look at our competitors, and we could see that some of them had like minimum night stay 28 nights, and we're sat there thinking, hold on a second, who's booking that? Who out there is booking 28 nights? Because we've always thought, and again, looking from our lens rather than the wider market lens, whenever we stay in Airbnbs, we're staying for one night. That's what we thought the market generally was. So taking all that into account, we thought we need to look at a way of increasing our mid to long-term stays.
Yeah, and I guess like I'm trying to go back a little bit earlier to my first, like when I had my estate agency, and we thought, I remember that landlord now because he obviously done us, because a year later he actually kicked us out to say we're going to sell those block of 4, and then guess what happened a week later? He's doing Airbnb himself. And I've said this in the story, but the story was basically we had a block of 4 to sell, it didn't get sold, and he was like, oh Piers, why don't we rent it out for a year and see how the market's? And I'm like, at that point I was like just about understanding about service accommodation. My client FlexiLet had a couple of units they've taken from me, and I'm like, okay, this is great, I'm going to do it. And I said to the landlord, I'm not going to give you deposit because we're doing it. You're going to get a guaranteed rent. That was like basically the terms people used to use before, right? In 2018, guaranteed rent, no deposit and all that. So I said that, and he went, right, yeah, if you're doing it, I'm happy with that. Don't need to pay deposit, just pay me So anyway, got a good deal. Went to IKEA, put all the furniture in for that. Bloody hell, next minute I realised, I think we landed like $3,500 booking from booking.com. And that was for 1-bedroom apartment. And I said to my partner at that time, I said, hold on a second. We used to sell a 1-bed apartment on a 1% fee, and sometimes we have to knock it down to 0.75% to win the sale for $130,000 apartment, which was a commission, 1% commission at $130,000, £1,300 for 3 months work, pleasing the seller, the buyer, the solicitors, all the others, and then we've just got this booking which has now made us more than £1,300. And I'm like, how does this work? Like, we haven't done anything apart from setting it up. And do you know what? That's when my light bulb moment, I was like, I am no longer a estate agency. I was like, this business is literally a face.
Yeah.
Everything else is Airbnb at that time. Now you imagine in 2017, 2018, literally nobody was doing it. Like, we were the first people in Aldershot to do it. So we had, and you know, when you think about that same question, who would actually come to Aldershot to stay? Like, there's not, but actually contractors, all the things that happen around the area. And I realised that, you know what, at that point, that 30 nights booking purely came because Ivan, myself, we had that marketing head. And that was why we knew how to market properties. I used to list properties in Rightmove, Zoopla. Until today, you know, 6.5 years later, I still play around with Airbnb and learn something new every day in terms of like the guest behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So let's now put a little bit back, because I think the scaling, this is what like really interests me about you guys, because 2.5 years, that many units, it doesn't happen to everyone, firstly. And secondly, like when you've done this and you've achieved it, like what are the like challenges you're facing before working with me as well? Like, just go back to normal. What are the challenges where you're facing?
I think the big ones, like you say, were that the amount of checkouts. Like we knew if we continued to scale from a longevity point of view, that wasn't going to be sustainable. 15, 20 checkouts on a Friday and Sunday, and our cleaning teams were at complete maximum capacity. So that side of the business did have the potential to fall down. Yeah. You can't constantly go in new cleaners, like it's not going to work. So yeah, I think prior to working with you, our average length of stay was 2 days. Yeah. We're now sat at 10 days. Yes. So it's increased massively, and we don't have all those checkouts on a Friday and Sunday now. It's scattered, and we've implemented a virtual assistant, obviously for yourself as well, who's working in the background now. That's why we've got the luxury of being here and doing this. And to be honest, sort of touch wood, we don't really have loads of issues. Don't get me wrong, you will have the odd thing that crops up here and there, but from a challenges and like obstacles and guest experience, like there's not a lot that really goes wrong day to day for us now. We've been so big from the very, very start, and I think this is largely Anderson and where his strengths lie, systems and processes. We've never chased the money. We've always said, get our systems and processes right, and the rest will follow. And every guest review that came in, we'll look at it, and if they've said something in the private or public feedback, they've said this, why have they said this? Can we change that? And we'd go and implement changes all the time to constantly fine tune. I remember, like, for example, our check-in process, we were getting all these 5-star reviews coming in. Been Superhost from day one, still hold it now on Airbnb, but our check-in score was something like 60% out of 100. And so we looked at that and thought, we understand it, we think it's straightforward, we put these written instructions we think are bulletproof, but clearly it's not resonating with the guests, they don't understand it. So that's where we went back, digital guidebooks. In there, there's links that they can click on, that's like first person videos with us with the camera like walking through to the key box, through to your car parking spot, from the parking spot to the elevator, up to the apartment. So it's just like literally idiot proof.
Good. That's what you want. Like this is where many operators don't want to do. Like nobody, like I've realised that many operators are like, oh, Piers, I think people will understand how to get in. I'm like, you've got to go and take that video, like you've just said, Ryan, like you walk in like a guest would from the time they've seen that street to going into that car park, parking their car, then going in. What that will do is give them a customer experience, right? And that systems and processes, which again, I'll come back to it slightly later in the podcast, because I want to nail some of the things that you guys have done and also the things that we've implemented with you, because I think the viewers here so far, you probably realise that this is a podcast where these guys have just gone in from 0 to 5, okay, well, we're working on Will. And then after that, straight like 6 unit, and they're like, systems and processes, let's get this right. There's not a lot of operators I know have done that. And, I speak to many operators on a daily basis. Well, listen, let's stop the actual service accommodation world. I want to talk a little bit about health, because I think as an entrepreneur, because I've realised it myself as well. I said to Samuel, I've gone through a different health war all the time in my mind as well as in my body, right? Firstly, I was overweight, and then when I had my estate agents, these guys were they used to laugh at me all the time, going like, what are you doing to yourself? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I feel okay. Like, I don't feel any worse. But I didn't realise how much it was killing me inside.
Yeah.
Like, my whole mind was dull, cloudy head, like, all of the things that. So, what are you guys doing to firstly keep yourself like insane?
I've always been a big believer on like the more you invest in yourself, the better everything around you is going to be. So from my perspective, gym has always been a big thing for me. And even when I was in the corporate world, because I worked in quite a high demanding job, and there were a lot of pressures put on you. So from a mental perspective, I needed something to really like keep me sane. So I'd be in the gym first thing in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, before my actual shift, doing gym. And I think when you go on the entrepreneurial path, you get into this rabbit hole of like personal development. So I started doing like meditation, which I was very, very big into, as well as like just trying to eat healthy. And now even more so, now that we've got a bit of more time, I'm even doing Muay Thai, and I invest very heavily in actually like sort of all of these biohacking side of things, whether it's like your coffee mushrooms, your herbs, fasting. So doing a whole load of things, and I know you've gotten a lot better on that side of things now as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've always played football 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Like I say, went through a phase sort of in the first year of the business where it sort of got really time consuming, where I knocked that on the head, but been fortunate to be able to go back to it. But I think we're now in the fortunate position with what we do. I always struggled to get into a gym routine, and I didn't like actually going by myself, like going in thinking, what am I doing now? And you do the same routine for like a year or two, and it's just the same exercises. So I've actually now invested heavily into like a private gym in my local area. So I did like a £20 Pure Gym membership. I now pay 150, so I'm paying a lot more. But I've now got an accountability coach. I go 4 or 5 times a week without fail, still playing football on top. Every session's planned, so I walk in, don't have to think about it. It's large group sessions, so it's more similar to like that football where you've got that camaraderie, the group around you, and you've got a bit of a more energy than being in a gym. But more of an energy than being sort of in a gym by yourself. And again, like doing this has allowed me to get into the routine of going to that consistently. They do classes all throughout the day. So if, for example, we're doing a podcast this morning, I might not go to my morning class, but I can book on this evening and go.
No, that's it. And that's something I've then going back to my journey as well. I realised that I've gone through that phase where I remember just after I sold my estate agency, I had a lot of free time. I had just like the Airbnb consulting business, Airbnb business. I thought, do you know what? This is like, I've got loads of time in my hand. And that's what I did, Ryan. I went and joined in David Lloyd's at that time, and I thought, I'm used to paying like 20 quid in a gym that I never went to. I'd be paying for like years to then go into this David Lloyd gym where I'm spending like 100, I think at that time was about 150. And I thought, bloody hell, that's a huge change. But do you know what? That's what the accountability, the environment change happens. I got introduced to Blaze, which was, till date, I still do it now. It's probably one of my favourite class ever. Lost me 15 kilo in like less than 9 months. I was doing it every day. It's a HIIT training, so it's probably not recommended by a lot of people, but my business was growing. I had this perfect team of 5. So it wasn't that big, but it was good enough to maintain, that worked. I didn't have to do anything till 11. I remember those days. 11 o'clock was probably when I was sitting at my desk, then engage with my team and my clients. By then I've already put systems in places so that my team would have, like with you guys, remember, at 9 o'clock they would message you, right? And the reason why I talk about health here is like a lot of viewers, and I like to talk about it now because I've gone through like that up and down journey, but it's always related to my business. It's not I've got a choice. The time I've gained a bit of weight, it's like because I'm like so much back into the business, or I've got something to scale, or something in the business needs my attention. So where does it like? I guess my question to you is, how do you what would you recommend someone who's about to start business? What are their like key things you've got to do to make sure that it's a balance rather than what we did, like just go insane on one thing first and then try and do the other thing later.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big believer in extremes.
Yeah.
I don't think you ever really find the real balance. And I think there may be a lot of people out there that will disagree. But as you said there, if your business needs urgent attention you're going to shift your focus to it. Don't get me wrong, I feel like you can have your core non-negotiables.
Yeah.
But it's almost extremes. But from when you look at it from a lifespan perspective, you'll be consistent. So for me, I've been going to the gym since I was 16, but I've not been going. If you look at it from a year perspective, I haven't been going consistently this year. But you look at it from a 16-year perspective, I've been going consistently. But then for the past 2.5 years, where it's been extreme focus on business, I don't feel like if I didn't have that extreme focus, we have had the foundations in place to really grow and scale. I don't know whether you think differently towards that.
No, I agree. I think when you're first starting out, there's, like we've sort of touched on earlier in the podcast, there's a lot of sacrifices you do make.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly so, whether it's relationships, whether it's hobbies, whether it's your health. I think naturally at the start that will get neglected. But it's making sure that at some point when you've got, whether it's the cash to do it or the time to do it, you do put those sort of systems and processes in place to get that balance back, which I think we're fortunate enough that we've done now. So when we set up units, like we don't do the setup anymore. Whereas at the start, you want to keep cash flow down. So you are painting, you are building all the furniture, but then it gets to a point where your time is more valuable than the cash to do those things.
I agree.
And I think it's important to highlight as well, when you first start your business, you are everything. You are the finance, head of marketing, finance director, designer. You are everything. Until you start replacing those roles within your business, you start to buy back time where you can gain that balance. But at the start, it's one of those things, like how quickly do you want to get from 1 to 10 units? That's very much dictated by the amount of time you invest in that, right? And so it's a difficult one.
It's a difficult, 100%. And I'm going to ask this to a lot of people. I think because I've gone through that phase, I just sometimes think I've done the wrong thing. But listening to you guys, I think we all go through the same journey. There's no balance. Like you said, I think for the fact that there's only very little people who want to be successful, they won't be able to balance in the first few years. They've got to be able to just go extreme in one thing or the other. So in this case, the business needed us and we've got to do the business, right? So let's talk about wealth. I think it's quite a nice, I think in your case, the figures that you guys are currently doing in terms of your Airbnb service accommodation business, because I think there's a lot of number that flies about. And for me, I think you guys have got what it takes to give the real figure that a lot, I watch service accommodation podcasts with some people and I'm like, that figure isn't correct, right? So I think what I really want to do is I want you guys to just give us an insight a little bit, and I think hopefully you'll be okay with that, but a little insight about your figures and how things are in the business, so then people can really understand what to expect if they ever go to scale this business.
So first year for us, we did 85k in turnover. And I think that's the important thing to highlight as well. It's turnover, it's not profit. There's so many people that are just like, oh, it's profit, blah, blah, blah. It's rubbish, complete rubbish. So 85k in turnover year one. Year two was 500,000 in turnover.
Wow.
And then it's annoying, but I think at the end of year three this year, I think we're going to fall just short of 1 million. I think we'll lie somewhere between 900 to 950, unless we onboard quite a few properties towards the back end of the year. But
Wow. Well, firstly, guys, congratulations on the achievements.
Thank you.
And I think it's not it's not a normal number to sit down here and say you're very close to hit, that 1 million revenue in 3 years into the business, right? But it also, like early in the podcast, you've talked about how you've done it, why you've done it, why it takes many people to get this business right rather than just one person. And I think that financial side of that, what's the next future goal then? Like, I guess, we've talked about, yes, you are going to hit that figure. It's probably going to be this year, looking at the way you guys are anyway. But if it doesn't happen, then what's next, or what's the growth plan?
So in the immediate short term, we're talking about this sort of offline, is we need to get Patrick on board full time.
Yeah.
So we're sat at 38 to get him on board comfortably without sort of draining loads of cash out of the business and continuing to stack up the cash.
Yeah.
We want to hit the 50 mark.
Yeah.
So the 50 mark will be when Patrick comes on board, and then like we said, we want to be somewhere between 50 and 100. So I think we'll continue to scale and get to the point where I think it'll probably be around the 75 mark. And then for us, it's about diversification. So obviously at the minute we've got rent to rent and management portfolio. So 13 are rent to rents, 25 are management. After that, we really want to start focusing on acquiring assets that are ours. So not only have we got the cash flow, but we're also getting the capital appreciation for the long-term wealth. So I think there'll be a slight diversification and shift from a business. That's not to say we're going to take our eye off the ball from a service accommodation perspective. But just a sort of change in strategy.
What a great journey that is, and that's again going back to many people's dream right now watching this, right? That first rent-to-rent unit. Why? Because they just want that extra cash, and then like once you've gone to that 5-10, okay, actually we're doing well, we're making a couple of £1,000 on profit, and then eventually you want to stack that cash up to be able to purchase something, right? And I guess like you guys probably do this, but sometimes you sit down going, is this enough?
We were having this conversation this morning. It's a difficult question, Piers, because I suppose you get to a level and then that you've always strived to get to, and you ask the question like, can I do more? Like, am I at my max capacity? Can I push this even further? So I feel like we have in mind what we want to individually cash flow. To say that's enough, and I think we're talking like 10k a month net individually, which is achievable. Absolutely. When you start to with the projection that we're going on, that's more than achievable. And when you start speaking to other people who have achieved it, you just start to realize that it is achievable. Now once we get to that mark, it might be a case of, okay, do we push this even further?
And there's no doubt about it. That's, again, I think about, there's two things I'm thinking right now. You guys are probably thinking, okay, well, asset build, your company build, but do you know what? Your company's worth a lot more right now. Also in terms of the value of the business. I haven't seen much of business in the UK as service accommodation which holds a company value. And I don't know if you've gone in and spoken to an accountant to ever speak, and no, it might not be the thing to do, but I admire that. I don't know, have you ever thought about your company value yet?
We haven't yet.
No, we thought about selling it one day and what that might look like, and again that's why we've gone back to systems and process. So whoever takes it on is buying a business, and then we can differentiate the two. So we'll have our assets in one company that we're acquiring, and then Valor Property Services, the service accommodation side, stays completely separate. So if one day we don't want to be involved, it can just be sold on.
It's amazing, and that's going back to what you guys have done, and I want to kind of touch base on this now actually. So over the last few years we've worked with so many clients, and one of the things I've always asked, and this is probably people watching this will like, how did you find about me? Because at some part of your journey it would be like, oh, I knew this guy, Piers, like first time you've seen me going, who's this guy talking about like long-term booking? Is he doing so how did that come about?
That's you that found Piers, wasn't it?
I found you through Instagram. So like I kept seeing your videos pop up in regards to like long bookings, and then alongside that I started to see other competitors talk about long bookings, and I'm always someone who likes to reverse engineer things. So when I see someone's doing something, I always think, okay, how are they doing it and why aren't we doing it? So when I started to reverse engineer things, and I'd notice a pattern that you were following them, they were following you, and I was like, okay, evidently this must be the guy who is giving them the knowledge. So from there, I started following you on Instagram, and I started watching some of your videos and your client testimonials, and I chucked it into the group chat, and I said, like, look, boys, I think for where we're at currently, this is something we need to consider. Initially we didn't really go for it. We thought, okay, funny again, because I love to reverse engineer things. I had noticed what you had been doing with some of your clients. So I actually started to implement it myself.
I know that. And by the way, like, there's many people who do this, and they still can't. No, that is true, because I saw your listing and I was like, when I spoke to you initially, no, it wasn't like that.
So I started to implement it myself, but then I thought to myself, like, look, okay, so we're starting to see the results here. However, we're not seeing the results that your clients were seeing. So rather than swaying away from our original sort of morals and values, where it's been a case of we'll always invest in our education, because if you invest in your education, you can go from I don't know 10k turnover to 100k turnover just by getting little golden nuggets from people. So at that stage we were like, you know what, let's actually progress with this. I dropped you a message, we said, like, let's jump on a call, because I think initially I had the call with you, and then I got the boys to actually join as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How easy was I, though? Do you and that's something that I like to say in this podcast, because when people jump in a call with me, I'm like, well, it's your choice.
You're very transparent. You said this is the offer.
This is the offer, and this is your choice to do it when you need to do it. My job is to tell the facts, and lucky to say that now I can see someone's business from an outsider perspective and just read what it looks like, because I've done it so many times. So I guess, look, there's a couple of things I want to ask you. Firstly, how did we go to work? Like, I know you messaged me and said, but what was one thing that you had in mind that you wanted to get? Because every time I invest in something, I'm like, I want to get that out from that person. So what was one thing that you wanted to get out from me?
The increase in length of stays, and as well as to increase the amount of direct bookings we were getting, because we were at a stage, again, from a scalability perspective, and also sort of diversifying risk. We were so heavily reliant upon your OTAs. And now when you've got a business like that, you can go from actually being a business or just being a provider to the OTAs, and we were always just a provider to the OTAs. We'll give them to our properties, and then we just rely on them to give us the bookings. So we needed to shift that and actually get a good flow of direct bookings, as well as profitable. Obviously you're saving the 15% on fees, but that being said, you also retain them as a client, and you can actually charge them slightly more from a longer term
booking. So when you said, sorry, just to stop you there, the length of stay, I think, Ryan, you mentioned you were doing an average of 2 nights.
2 nights,
to now you're doing a 10 nights average across all the portfolio. I mean, firstly, well done to you guys. I think I always say to my clients, I can show you all the things. We'll do it with you while we're working with you guys. But it's eventually understanding that method and being able to implement it, tweaking it. I'm sure you've done it many times in your properties, right? So, like, what was the fun part? And I always say there's always fun and bad, and I like to be absolutely transparent about it. What was the fun part working with me?
I think just how much we got out of the weekly calls. Like, it wasn't ever a chore. Every weekly call we had good conversation, good energy. We always came away with something to implement. I think, you know, us, we get given information and we act upon it like pretty quickly. So yeah, it was just every call gave us value. There was never a call we came off thinking that was a waste of an hour or whatever it was. There was always value that we got from each and every call, wasn't there?
As well as outside perspective on things, because I think that, and I've said it before, it's like you can get into that sort of dangerous pattern of just thinking your way is the right way. Obviously we're free, but you have so much knowledge. You're speaking to other clients about their businesses. You know, you've probably seen the best practices, the bad practices. So to be able to speak about our business with someone who is knowledgeable around it and really bounce ideas off of each other was a real benefit. Really.
Absolutely. And what do you think about my team? Because I know I always say I'm the pretty one that comes in and talks to you guys, right? And I'll be like, yeah, we've done this. Oh, yeah. That. But what did you think about the speed of work and the actual workflow from my team?
Oh, really good. Really good. They were quick. From as soon as we actually signed the contract, transfer the funds, you guys were on it. Even to the point where I think I always said to you, I really like the way in which you have your business set up.
And structured.
And I said we can take a lot away from just this part of how they engage with us as clients as to how we engage with our clients.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, it was really, really good to see.
Appreciate that. And I think, you know what, this is where like it brings back memories now, because I remember the amount of time, you know, and we're a business at the end of the day, my team's going to watch this as well, the amount of time I have difficult conversation with my team. We've got a team of 15. Out of that, about 6 of them are working with our clients. I just can't see a message. If a WhatsApp comes from my client and it's sat there for more than 10 minutes, it's a panic for me. I'm like, why are we not replying? It's been 10 minutes, and in hindsight it's only 10 minutes, right? But I'm like, why is nobody replying in that first few minutes? Like, why are we sitting on a message? There's about 6 people who can just reply, and that really kind of changed, and it actually helped me understand why I like to do business in a certain way, where if my client's paying me, I want to be able to, I might not have the information then, but it will always say, look, we're working on it, or we'll find out the information and come back to you. And half the time my team will do that, because I want to make sure my clients are understanding that it's never just like looked at and then forgotten about. And that's something that like I want to bring to your business. And I remember the session we did with, guys, why are you doing all of this yourself? Like, there should be someone. And you guys were like, are we ready for it? I don't think there's enough jobs. I remember those conversations. So I think it'd be quite nice to talk about this right now. I think I've definitely bought you time back in the business.
100%.
I think that out of everything we've done, but also I think you've bought your time back yourself, because you've recognized there's a problem in the business, which is you guys are doing, and you enjoy doing it. It's not that you don't enjoy messaging back to the guests and you don't enjoy doing the marketing stuff, but what does the business look like right now versus what it did before, in terms of the people, like the work that was involved between you all, versus now you've got Ricky, who you've hired, who is a legend. So Ricky, if you're watching this, I have got to say to you, you're another one of the team members in my clients' businesses, really taking over and doing the right things for the leaders in the business. So yeah, talk to me. What was it like before, and what is it like now?
It's completely different. It's completely different. I think for us, when we were sort of, obviously we're trying to grow and scale, so we'd go out and we'd be having client meetings and go in doing property viewings but when we're doing those things, everything else stopped. So when you then been out all day, you'd go back to loads of emails, loads of guest messages. If there's a guest problem, as you've just said there, they expect a response straight away. So that all builds up, so the business just completely stops, and then you're then playing catch up, so you don't have time. Whereas now we've put Ricky in place, we've got internal systems where we've got different channels and stuff that all the conversation filters through, so it's all kept to sort of streamlined different areas, whether it be late checkouts, whether it be maintenance issues, whether it be related to each individual platform. And like I say, we're here now whilst he's in the background running the business for us. He's taking guest calls, he's doing all the guest communications, and he's setting up of new listings. He does that, so we can actually go out and focus on all the cash generating exercises whilst he sort of mans the fort.
Amazing.
Feel like having come across you and starting with you coincided really well with us coming across a book called The E-Myth. Now the E-Myth talks about the fact that you don't have a business until all of your systems and processes are documented. Until you have all of those documented, you have a job. And for us, it's always been a case whereby we've wanted to escape our jobs and have all sort of financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, which, by the way, that should never be the sort of aim at the start. The core focus at the start. That should come secondary to actually delivering a good business. But once we actually got everything documented, it now feels like a proper business, because everything's on Loom, down to how to, I don't know, extend a stay, to convert a lead that you've taught us. But
do you realise that how much I said to you when I was like, everything I do right now is this? Like, I don't have the time to manage 15 people. I don't have the time, like we are at the moment. You know, I've got a client who's got 400 units. Imagine he's messaged us right now. If I'm not there, the whole thing's going to go problem. But we've now, and this is what I've always wanted to do with my clients, is I've learned something that wasn't really a part of my role. My role was just to grow your brand and stuff like that. But eventually, if I see a problem in the business that I can fix, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do with you guys. And I remember the session where I said, look, I want to buy more time back for you, because once you do that, you're going to focus on better things in the business.
Yeah.
And right now, it's fair to say that, what does your day look like as a service accommodation owner? It'd be amazing to know.
For me, it's wake up, go to a gym. Like I say, go and always have a gym session in the morning.
Yeah.
Come back, I'll do some calls and emails, generally to clients. Like I say, the guest side of things is taken care of by Ricky. Usually have a bit of a break in the afternoon, don't we? We have a bit of a catch up. Afternoon will then be, we sort of got that our checkout is 10 a.m. and our check-in is 3 p.m. So if anything is going to go wrong, it'll be in that sort of window. So in the afternoon, we like to get out and do inspections. Yeah. Don't have to do it. Yeah. We can send other people to do it, but it's nice to just keep on top of the properties and make sure everything's okay. So I'll pop out in the afternoon and do some inspections, and then again just back to my desk, calls and emails, and relatively straightforward.
Yeah, we're in a fortunate position now where we can actually have our phone on Do Not Disturb.
Good.
Because we know the guest side of things is being handled, because that's the ones that have sort of demand a lot from us. So we can have that on Do Not Disturb, as well as now our cleaning and maintenance team. We can, not 100%, but we can walk away from it about 80% of the time. We're not really involved in that side of things. Again, Ricky's handling all of that. So we're just focused on top level revenue generating activities.
If there's anything like really important, so like even with our WhatsApp groups with our cleaners, we've got those muted now. We had meetings with them a couple of months back to say, like, we are stepping back, we don't need to be involved now. Ricky's in here, he can talk to you about linen counts and all that sort of stuff. So we've sort of muted all the group chats, so if anything is important, again, it'll come from Ricky and Slack in the relevant channel. I know we know how to pick it up.
And even setting up Slack, do you remember when you all were talking in WhatsApp, and I was like, what's the point of doing it in WhatsApp? Let's build a system that's going to take you outside, the actual WhatsApp messaging that your friends are doing right now, and all that kind of stuff. So guys, I think, look, I guess I want to end this podcast with a couple of things. Firstly, like, there's people out there who wants to work with us, and I've always had this. You can't always go and say, oh, we can do this, we can do that. And in genuine value, I've always said to my clients, please read our review, like whatever there is online about us, please. And I've always made sure that it reflects on what we say. I'd love you to say, what did you think about working with us? If someone's watching this and gone, actually, I'm not sure, like Piers says all of this, but what is it in like that you can offer someone? Like, I'm lost for words, because I think for me, I'm telling you to tell something nice about me, but it'd be nice in genuine way to say, like, what do you think about someone who's looking to work with us? Well,
I think I said to you, didn't I, which kind of led to the whole day and filming this podcast. Last week I dropped you a message off a result of it was a booking coming in. It was 2 bookings coming in, so we had 2 properties that are now booked until the end of January 2025, and it was off the back of that we'd sort of really realised the structure of our business has completely changed. And I dropped you a message saying that is the best investment we have ever made. Like, our business was in a completely different place until we had worked with you, and like I said, it was not sustainable what we were doing. So yeah, had it not been for you, I don't think we'd be sat here doing this. But yeah, if anyone's looking to work with Piers, 100% recommend it. Best investment you'll do, 100%.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. And I think, guys, look, there's 2 things out of this podcast. Firstly, follow these guys. I'm going to make sure you put the link down below. Even if you're looking for a management company, hit them up, because I think there's people out there, by the way, who can't, really do what I can do. And I think I always say to my clients, if then go and work with my clients, right? Because then you get effectively the same results out from them, just in a different way. With us, it's like, we want to build your brand, right? And I've always said it, the amount of business I turn down, just because sometimes I'm like, look, we can't help you because you want a management company, right? These are the guys that you want to talk to, because you guys have got a seriously amazing business right now. And I've only been a part of a small journey in your business. You've done this for long enough time. So firstly, credit to all the directors and you guys in the business. And to end this podcast, I'd love to know one thing. Big bookings that you guys have got, because people want to understand this. big bookings that you remember and went, bloody hell, that's a sweet booking for each individual?
Yeah, I think the biggest standout one, I'm sorry, it actually came before working with you, but last year we had a £250,000 booking, which was hosting 60 staff over a 9-month period and three-month blocks across the year, and it pretty much occupied like most of our portfolio during those blocks. Yeah. And that was direct as well, so obviously no fees and stuff like that.
Yeah. What about you, Anderson? I know that's a good one, but see if you can. You give us back of us.
It's going to be
141 days.
Yeah, 141 days. And what was the exact figure?
It was 141 days, 17.5 grand on a 2-bed. So nightly rate worked out about £124 a night, which was sort of 3.7 to 3.8k. Our overheads were like 1.8k on it.
Love that. Right, so guys, well, this is pretty much our video for today. I think we've thoroughly enjoyed working with you guys, also creating the opportunity, which I've always said I want to. When I onboard clients, I'm like, look, I want to work with you because I know I can add genuine value. But also, thank you so much for taking time out today and doing this and sharing your incredible journey. Thank you so much for watching another GrowYourBnB video, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out and doing this podcast with me, and obviously coming and visiting me in Sandbanks.
Thanks again for having us, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.